Hello, and welcome to episode 20 of Carry On With Carrie podcast. Today, I'm happy to welcome Sherri-Lyn Shaw to the show. She is the owner of Transcend Wellness. She is an energy practitioner and an awakening mentor. Welcome.
Thanks. I'm so delighted to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm thrilled to have you here. So,
Thank you.
If you wanted to, in the bio, I kind of mentioned a lot about, what your offerings are. And can you kind of just give a little bit of a rundown about, say, your energetic system and the spiritual side of it?
Yeah. So, the way that I really help people right now is we work on the energetic system in the body, and I use various energy modalities, different tools like Reiki, the emotion code, body code, and more to help balance, to help release things that are currently held, maybe from the past, and just really to help create that openness in the energy system. Which, if we think about it, like we have this physical body, but we also have an energy body. And I never really thought about that aspect before, but that energetic system is important because it really feeds all of our parts of our being, our organs, our systems. And so, the different tools that I use it's a custom approach for each individual because everybody's so different, has different experiences, different backgrounds, different exposures. And we really allow their body to help guide our way. What is the next step that will really help you? Very custom to you. How can I best help? How can we help you get over this hurdle or whatever it is?
Mm-hmm.
And so, the energetic side is really, it can help with health on all levels, mental, emotional, physical. And so I'm really passionate about that. Mm-hmm. And on the spiritual side, I never really saw myself going into any of this, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I was not open to this. I did not believe in this. But I had health issues. And so I needed some help. And, the more I connected with my spirit and, kind of the energetic side of me, mm-hmm. that's when really big shifts happen. So now I help people to really connect with their truth, with their essence, with their soul, their spirit, and to operate from that place as opposed to, all from logic and mind, mm-hmm. which often gets us into places that aren't really where we want to be.
Right. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to relate to it's not everybody relates to that side of it, right?
Correct. Right. I certainly didn't.
Yes.
And I was not willing to go that. I was looking for the logic, the 3 mm-hmm. steps that I need to take that will get me to, that place of success. And that wasn't working for me anymore.
Mm-hmm. Right. So now with that, you had mentioned when we talked about you coming on the show and that you were quite open to discuss any kind of like mental health issues that you yourself may have had in the past, or any experiences that you have had related to mental health. And I appreciate that. So are you willing to, is that something that you're okay to share?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm in my 40s now, early 40s. And the first part of my life really has been up and down with mental health in terms of anxiety and depression. I went through a phase even as a teen where I was like extremely happy and then extremely down. There's probably labels for all of those conditions. But definitely I experienced a lot of challenges. In my teens in particular, I went through depression after my niece had passed, actually. Right. And so I was 14 and she was 18 months and I couldn't make sense of that. And I didn't have the capacity to process it either. Mm-hmm. And so that was a really steep downward spiral that I took. Depression I was like rock bottom. There was one night that I did kind of like a call for help, a cry for help, a suicide attempt that, I didn't try very hard, to be honest. But, mm-hmm. I did have a razor at my wrist. And, after that point, it was like something shifted in me. I was like, please, someone help. I don't believe in this whole universe God thing, but I don't know what else to do. And so after I did that, it was like certain things started to shift, and anyway, so took me years to kind of navigate through. There was a lot of numbing in those days. Alcohol was huge. Anything that I could really do to stay busy and to not think about what was going on and deal with, the not nice feelings. And so it was, finally I got into the workforce and, started to create a career for myself and really, make progress as far as I was concerned. And I found that there were health issues that were popping up. It was more than just the depression that would come and go. But it was, anxiety, extreme anxiety. Right. I had like OC tendencies that were starting to come together.
Yep.
Extreme perfectionism, all these things that were almost like limiting life and keeping me in this small cage. And so, I tried everything that I could do from like the typical system perspective to get beyond those things. And, there was like jaw tension and like migraines coming up. And, there was a ton of lists, like my food sensitivities were coming up. So my digestion was always a mess. And that really is not conducive for a work schedule.
No.
All of that.
Yep.
And so I had to start looking a little bit deeper. And, I recall the first time, and I did work with a therapist at the time, so a psychologist. And I remember I was looking at her list of all the things that she could help as a psychologist. And it was like, certain eating patterns were things that I struggled with, kind of that binge eating, that kind of starving, purging, all kinds of not pleasant ways to treat my body.
Right.
The OC tendencies, the perfectionism, the this, the that. And I was like, oh, and I'm like, so let me get this straight. You're telling me that by dealing with my emotions, that might help me get beyond these things. Just like, yeah. And that was the scariest step I've ever taken in my life, because I was like, oh, because you're also asking me to like lean into the nasties that I've been avoiding and numbing myself from, but that I can't escape from either, that just keep chasing me. And so I started working with her, and she did help in many, many ways. And then I felt like at some point I got to kind of a plateau where there were still things there and I wasn't able to go further. So that's really when the energetic world started to open up to me. And I was working with a naturopath at the time. And, so we were from everything from a physical perspective, like, let's look at all angles. What could be causing these?
Yeah.
And finally, we had exhausted every avenue from her perspective. And she was like, you know what about sound therapy? You seem, we had been talking about sounds and songs or something. She's like, I feel like your body actually might respond quite well to that. And I was like, well, I'm willing to try it. I don't believe in it, but okay, maybe.
Right. And
so from there, the sound therapist that I went to, she had suggested, you need to come for Reiki. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but okay. And that Reiki session, I couldn't put my finger on it, but it just felt nice. Like I felt better. I'm like, I don't know what you did, but okay. And she's like, okay, come back again. I'm like, I guess if I have to.
Yeah.
And so more and more throughout those sessions, I just started to notice shifts where I was able to do life a little bit better.
Yep.
I didn't feel like I was drowning. I didn't feel like I was like everything was out of control. I just felt like I could actually like pick myself up and move forward.
Right.
So, I mean, one thing led to another. And I mean, each step along the way that I took action on, kind of from that place of, well, I don't know that I believe it, but I'll give it a shot. It was just kind of another puzzle piece that helped to peel back some of those layers. And so now the modalities that I work with are the things that I found really helpful for me. And so not to say that what fit for me is going to work for everybody else, but we can use them as tools, and we can ask your body and your energy field for some guidance on where we need to go and find that path that feels right for each individual. So yeah, long story short, anxiety, depression, many different labels that, we often experience with mental illness. They have definitely been a part of my life and a struggle and a challenge. And I'm at a point now where I haven't experienced those things in many years.
Oh, wow.
I never thought that I would get to that point. Right. I didn't realize that there was a freedom like that was available. So I'm so ridiculously grateful that I followed my heart and allowed myself to explore areas that I didn't necessarily understand or believe in.
Right.
But just to like dip a toe in and see how the water was, that worked, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to actually give those things a try, but to also use your head and your heart to say, does this really feel good and right for me?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
follow your intuition.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Which is what it's all about.
Yes.
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 And so in that, do you feel like, so you kind of work off of your intuition and, do you think that's something, I know we all have intuition. We all have that power to listen to it. But is there a point where you noticed that you had kind of a higher sense or a higher vibration of intuition?
Yeah. Well, so in my younger years, I didn't necessarily believe in intuition or like guiding from a heart at all.
Yeah.
So when I was a child, I think I was actually pretty connected. And like to me, nature like was my place where I felt that connection very much.
Yeah.
And so in my teens and my early 20s and whatnot, I was very disconnected from that. So I didn't listen to my gut, didn't listen to my intuition, didn't even know that was how I was supposed to be driving or what would best help me to drive and navigate this life.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was when I started, actually giving those different modalities a try, like going for Reiki treatments, that I noticed that kind of those senses started to increase and get stronger. And so it's been a progress. It's been a process. I do believe, yes, that we all have, we come from factory with intuition.
Right.
It's like life experiences that actually cause us to shut it off.
Right. Yes. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Or like people who say like, that's not safe. That's woo. That's not true. You're making that up. It's all in your head or it's make believe kind of thing. So yeah. Or they'll speak poorly of, that world because it's not necessarily the norm.
Right. It's not something they know and it's unfamiliar.
Yeah, exactly.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, okay. I just wonder, like Reiki is quite common now as well. Could you kind of give an idea of like in your explanation of what Reiki actually is?
Yeah. Yeah. So Reiki, the way that I view it, and this may not be the way that everybody would describe it, but I view it as universal life force energy. So it is the energy that flows through our bodies. It is the energy from the universe. And the process of a Reiki treatment is really the facilitation of bringing that energy through the practitioner to the person, to the person's body. And, our bodies know where the energy needs to go.
Right.
So it's really, a process of potentially releasing some blockages from opening things that are opening things that are currently closed but are supposed to be open, allowing that energy to flow in. Example of that is a chakra. Some people are familiar with that. The 7 major ones are kind of at the crown of our head, third eye, middle forehead, I should say, throat, heart, solar plexus, so upper abdomen, sacral, so lower abdomen, and root, kind of at your tailbone. The way that I view those, they're kind of like energetic plugins, portals or funnels that allow that energy to connect to our body and to flow in. So sometimes those can be closed off. And, Reiki can help to open them and to allow that energy to flow. So it's literally an approach to help nourish and nurture and balance the energetic system in the body. And when the energy of a person's body is really balanced, the physical body can kind of follow suit. It's almost like the energy sets a template and the physical aligns with that.
Right. And that makes sense. I mean, you can start off your day in a great mood and then you walk into a room that's maybe not so happy and you can feel that energy shift immediately.
Exactly.
Right. So, I mean, it's not hard to, like, to me, that's just such a obvious thing that we just don't really think about.
Yes.
Like we just don't, realize it's, and you mentioned vibrations. Like, so you mentioned the sound therapy. How did you find that when it was introduced to you? Was it
so
instantly? Did you love it or
no?
Okay.
No, none of these things instantly. I loved them. It was more so that I just noticed that I felt better. There was something there that just felt good. And so it took me a number of years with the sound therapy to come around and to try again and to give it a shot. And, the beautiful thing about sound therapy is we use tuning forks to kind of work on different energetic pathways in the body to help clear any energetic blockages there. And, you can actually feel that frequency. You can feel like as the blockages kind of release, that energy will then flow to a different part. So I liked sound therapy because it was very like, I could almost follow it.
Right. Yes.
I could almost wrap my head around, okay, yeah, there is a vibration. I understand that when I hit a tuning fork, I can feel the vibration.
Right.
So that one was really, and even for my husband, when I do sound therapy on him, is like, yeah, I get that. Reiki, he's like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel really relaxed, but it's just different. It's
Right.
He's not as sensitive to those subtle energies.
Right. And that's where you kind of, if you open up your mind to trying them at least, you kind of get a sense of if it's for you or not.
Yeah.
And it's so, as well as the sound therapy, it says color therapy as well.
Yeah.
So what is that?
Yeah. So the way that I learned to work with sound therapy is they go together, sound and color. And so color is a frequency, just as sound is a frequency. And so each color has like an individual signature from an energetic perspective. And so known as frequency. And so, I mean, there's certain sounds that we know are like, they almost make us shudder, like, ugh, that's awful. Chalkboard, fingers down it. That's not a nice sound. And then there's other sounds that they feel really pleasant in our body. They're enjoyable. And so the same thing applies with colors. Our body needs all frequencies of color, like the rainbow, to really be balanced. And so sometimes our body just needs, like green is a great color for just general overall healing.
Okay.
Magenta can be as well for certain people. So we ask, really tap into the body to understand, well, what color will best serve at that time. And so that color frequency can help to balance. To kind of just permeate. It's more like a slow permeation into the body as opposed to sound is like we can direct it.
Right.
So,
and is it something you guide just through speech? Like, what color are you seeing? Is that like
can be.
Okay.
It can be. The way that I do it is I actually have a lamp and I've got color films that are specific colors. And so we work with those. So I'll put the film on the lamp for the duration of the treatment and it'll just like softly permeate into the energetic field and into the different layers.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that's kind of how that works.
So growing up, I had a yellow bedroom, and I've heard since that yellow is actually not the best color for someone with depression. Now, I don't know where I heard this, so I'm not like, this is just something I heard at one point. And now my room where I'm at is almost like an indigo, like it's just a really soft purple. Like it's almost not even purple. It's like, I can't explain it. I was out in Cochin actually at the retreat this summer, and the sunset had that perfect, like it was exactly the same color just above, the horizon. And now when somebody gravitates towards a color like that and you actually kind of notice that, what does that, like, what would your meaning be, or how would you explain that to somebody?
Well, I would say that just as we gravitate to various things, it could be foods, could be colors, could be certain stones, crystals, certain curiosities of things like activities or different techniques, those types of things. I think that that's always typically anyway, I'll say our intuition nudging us saying like, there's something about that. There's a reason that you're drawn to that.
Right.
So from my perspective, I trust that and I roll with it. Like if I really feel strongly that like, and it makes my heart soar, like it's just that opening, like, yes, I need that in my life, then roll with it.
Right.
So, our bodies are great at kind of giving us those signs if we learn to kind of interpret what a hell yes is in our body versus like a no.
Right. And is that something that you can help guide towards, even whether it's color therapy, sound therapy, the body code and the emotional code? So what does that involve?
Yes. Okay. So to answer your first question, yes,
Sorry,
I do.
Yes.
More from like a spiritual connection perspective, I do teach people how to kind of tap into their yes and their no so that they can kind of help guide themselves. So the emotion code, I'll start with that. This is actually one of my favorites. And when I found this, when I stumbled upon it, I was like, this is a load. Like, this is never going to work.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah. I was like skeptic about everything. So I just need, like, I worked as a business analyst for the first 20 years of my career. It's very logical, very,
Yeah.
So, all of this I was not open to. So I was like, well, you know what is it going to hurt? Like to try. And so the concept with emotion code is we go through life and we have emotional experiences and we experience emotions. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
It's normal, natural. We do it every day. And they kind of have this life cycle where they start out and they peak and then they get to the top and then we're really feeling them. And then if we just sit with them, they'll kind of dissipate off. And if we stop that process somewhere in the middle, we don't allow that life cycle to happen for that emotion, they can get stuck in our body.
Right.
So, somebody might say, oh, suck it up. You might just feel like, no, I just need to stuff that down.
Yep.
And so that energy still stays. It's like this ball of energy now stuck somewhere in our body, blocking the flow, the natural, normal flow of energy. And it could cause all kinds of challenges down the road. For me, I had like a terrible hip issue that was related to my niece's passing when I was 14. So I later found, as part of using myself as a guinea pig with the emotion code, that it was a pocket of grief. So there were a number of different emotions that I hadn't processed with that.
Yeah.
And so I released those and I never had the hip issue after.
Oh, wow.
And I was literally at the chiropractor's office multiple times a week for it.
Yeah.
After that, nothing. I was like, wow, well, I can't discount that. Like that just happened.
Yeah.
And I know what my life was before. I'm like, whoa.
And was this somebody like a practitioner that did this to you or you did to yourself?
So I was learning the emotion code at the time. And, I had stumbled upon Dr. Bradley Nelson, who is, the guy who put together the emotion code and the body code. And so I thought, well, I don't know that I believe in this, but I'll start learning and I'll see what it does on myself.
Right.
And so after I started seeing these, and then I took it very seriously. He had kind of given some initial instructions. I actually went for the certification afterwards because I was like, okay, yeah, this is legit. So it can also, emotions can have also an emotional aspect, right? Like we may have these certain trapped emotions and it's almost like we keep reproducing those or looking for the circumstances, trying to avoid them that might, abandonment, for instance. So when we can actually release those core emotions from when we were, children, really, that are causing us to like look for this and almost like call it to us by doing that, because that's where we're putting our focus.
Yeah.
We release those, that can go away. So some of those patterns, some of those like emotional storms that we kind of get ourselves into, you can start to kind of unravel the mess that actually creates those. From a mental perspective, mental health, it can also, like those emotions that get trapped, they can impact how we're feeling in our on all levels. So emotion code is fantastic in the sense that it's a simple way to identify and release those trapped emotions without having to get back into the details of them. So that was the main difference I found from therapy to working with that. It's literally, we energetically connect with the body. We are communicating with the body and asking for guidance. Like, is there anything there? Okay, which emotion? All right, well, then we just release it. Sometimes we have to go into details, but most times not. So it was almost like, I think one of my clients more recently called it like a life hack or something, like the best life hack, because it's just so simple. So I really appreciate that about it. Body code goes a little bit deeper.
Okay.
So the body code looks at, okay, so you have this symptom, whatever it is that you're struggling with. What is the unique, perfect storm of stuff behind the scenes that's causing this? So it could be emotion, but it could be something else. It could be a toxin, a parasite, a misalignment. You might be holding on to like a physical trauma, like where you had an accident or a fall or surgery or an illness or something, and there's the energy of it still stuck. So it can be a variety of things. It could even be related to beliefs, to be honest, or, just certain things that you keep telling yourself as true and believe as true, but they're actually not.
Right.
So the body code's a lovely, simple tool, again, to start peeling back those layers and releasing them energetically. And so I find this to be such a powerful practice. So I love the emotion code and body code. Again, I started them. I was a skeptic. I'm like, I don't know. We'll see if they do anything.
Yep.
They've done stuff.
Right.
They're really awesome.
Okay.
So yeah. So these are some of the tools that I work with my clients. And, that if you were to come for a session, it doesn't mean that I would work with one of those. We kind of find the right tool that will best help you of my toolkit.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So what is it all that you do offer?
Okay.
Yeah. Because
Yeah. So in terms of services, I've mentioned Reiki, emotion code, body code. I work with sound and color therapy, as we've talked about. I do work with crystals, so I'm a certified crystal therapist. And that's just really using the crystals to actually provide a treatment to your body to help use the frequency of the crystal to open up certain pathways. Those can be really powerful. They're beautiful sessions. I also work with universal spheres. So that's more about like calling higher vibrational potentials and possibilities into your life and into, problem solving, really.
Yeah.
But problem solving with the universe. We see like the table in front of us as all of the options that are available, but there's actually millions and like infinite numbers of possibilities.
Right.
So that one's a little bit more interesting in that it's, inviting higher vibrational possibilities forward. And I think that like I was very skeptical of it, but it's kind of a fascinating tool to work with, to be honest. And so we can use that for health. We can use that for circumstances in life, various different things. Some of the other things that I do are more on the spiritual side. So really, I do angel readings. I do oracle card readings.
Okay.
Basically connecting with that person's spirit team. I believe that we all have a spirit team who is there to guide us. People will refer to like spirit guides. My belief is that we have this team of beings that are there helping us, and they're really wise, and they understand what we're here to do and who we truly are and what we're capable of.
Right.
And they believe in us way more than we believe in us. And so, that's kind of part of, and they are connected to our intuition. Like they are part of the reason we're getting these nudges and these inklings and these curiosities and, that color that just sticks out at you. They're the ones like nudging you.
Right.
So being able to connect with, your team and really get a sense for, what are the messages they have for you? What are the words of encouragement? What are the words of love? Where are you not loving yourself that they know that you need to love yourself more? Where are you overworking yourself where you actually need to pull back and listen to your body? And, so those are really fascinating. More recently, I've been working with Akashic readings, and that is also fascinating because that's really just looking at like a library of everything that you've ever done across all lifetimes. So your soul, it's really a library of your soul's experiences, as well as lots of the potentials. So it's fascinating to kind of, get a very customized view of you and why things are the way they are in certain cases and, some different potentials moving forward. So when I'm working with a client, it's not that I'm trying to say, you need to sign up for one of each of these.
Right. Yeah.
I will recommend, what I really feel strongly, like what I'm being kind of led to
personalizing it to that person.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when you spoke of Reiki earlier, I just wonder, and I've always wondered this. I've had other people kind of give me different ways to protect yourself and your own energies, because that's what it's kind of all about. As an empath, do you find you take on those energies, or you've learned a way to separate it?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. So the majority of my life as an empath, I took everybody else's stuff on, and that was really heavy and it didn't serve me at all. And so first I learned that we're actually not responsible for the energy of another person. So kind of drawing that line of what is actually mine to own versus what is someone else's to own.
Right.
And really kind of keeping that solid line. But definitely every day I do go through like my energetic kind of practice to set my body up for the day. And that a part of that really includes grounding. So, I mean, some people will speak of earthing, getting their feet out on the earth. And, that's a really great way to do it. And just like imagine or sense that you've got these roots coming out from your feet and you're putting them down into Mother Earth. My understanding of that is the earth actually helps us to take away some of that energy and kind of like transmute it or translate it into, something else, something for good. And so for me, I just do it as a visualization. I imagine these roots coming down my feet and I wrap them around the center of the earth a couple times, and, it just keeps me nice and solid and rooted. So that's part of it. I also kind of put up an energetic bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just asked for that to be put in place. And I intend, and I think intention actually is much more powerful than we give it credit.
Right. And when you, before we started recording, you had made a statement, and I can't remember what it was, but it was the way you said it, and you kind of took it back and said, no, I want to reframe that. Is that kind of what your intentions?
Possibly. I mean, so our intention and working with energy, it goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
So intending to connect with the earth, intending to have this bubble around, it actually does have power. You know, what we believe to be true is what actually comes true.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we actually create in our life. Previously, I had said, I'd used a word like, I don't know, it's really hard to do blah, blah, blah. And I had kind of backtracked a bit on that. I'm like, no, I feel like words, they truly have power. And the things that we say actually call those things into reality. It's
Mm-hmm.
like a manifestation thing. So I had changed that to say something like, no, like, yeah, it can be challenging.
Right.
You know, so it's not absolute. So yeah, long story short with that,
Yeah.
I really do think that the words that we use with ourselves, with our other people in our lives, even with people that we're not directly talking to,
Mm-hmm.
our words matter, and they actually have an impact. They have an energy to them. And that energy is not like, it doesn't just stop at you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you can choose your words very carefully. And, I think that, tying that into mental health, this was a big thing that I needed to learn to help manage my own mental health was, the words I was using with myself.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What I was allowing myself to think,
mm-hmm.
what I was allowing myself to say to myself, because in my younger self there was a lot of shame and a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
And just a lot of really low vibrational thoughts and feelings. And, so they would have looked more like, who are you to have that? Or, you can't do that. Oh, you're going to fail. Like, whatever they were, you're not perfect, you're not good enough, you don't have, you're not skinny enough,
Yep.
you don't have her legs, whatever it was.
Yep.
So that was kind of my internal dialogue, and it did not serve me well.
Mm-hmm.
It took me to really dark places.
Right.
It, basically, it completely deflated me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to learn many, many times over probably that the quality of our words that we use with ourselves and in all aspects of our life, they really do matter. Manifestation is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
What
100%.
we believe and what we feel and what we vibrate, and that is actually what comes to us.
It actually makes you rethink. Actions speak louder than words.
Mm-hmm.
Do they? I mean, of course, that is something.
Yeah.
But words can impact somebody. You can't take them back.
Yeah.
And depending on, what they are, they can stay stuck in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And, the more we hear the same thing over and over and over, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's coming from ourselves, whether it's coming from another, our parents or whatever, we start to believe it.
Yeah.
We start to believe it as a truth. And I'm actually going to give you a really silly example because it's really pertinent here.
Mm-hmm.
So in my early 20s, this is okay. So this is about moose.
Okay.
So I was with a bunch of my friends and we were talking about moose, and I don't even know what they said, but my response was like, just being silly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you know what? I don't really like moose. Like, I feel like they'd be really dirty in a fight. Like, they'd headbutt you and kick you in the junk. Like, it's kind of how I feel about moose. Like,
yeah.
So anyway, I would always joke about that. And, but what happened was, like, for years and years, I would kind of use that same silly joke, just not to get really serious about anything.
Yeah.
But I started to notice that my body actually started to respond.
Okay.
When I thought about moose. There actually started to become like more of a fear around them, where I was like, oh, like, I just feel like they're really unpredictable. Like,
right.
And so by continuing to say that, it was actually mind blowing. So the one day I was snowmobiling with my now husband,
Mm-hmm.
and we were going across this field, and there was a moose on the opposite side of the field, and it was running like parallel to us as we drove our sleds. And, it wasn't anywhere near us.
Right.
And we were going way faster than it could run. But I could feel my body starting to tense. I could feel my heart starting to race. I could feel my, like, everything just like that fear and that terror of this animal and like the potential of it to harm me setting in. And, I got home that night and I sat and I thought about it. I'm like, what the heck just happened?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would I react like that? Like, there was no imminent danger.
Right. Yeah.
There's probably other dangers going that speed on a sled, but,
yeah.
That was not one of them. The moose was not the thing. So I was like, what is this? And it occurred to me that I had created the story.
Mhm.
And the story had started to pick up speed and steam. And it had become truth to my subconscious mind.
Right.
So as soon as I saw that moose, I was like, body reacts because this is truth. There is like, that is scary. There's something to fear there.
Mhm.
When in reality, if I scale it back to facts, the moose was nowhere near me. It was, yes, they are big animals and we do need to respect them. It was not in the rut. So it was really not in that state where it was,
Dangerous or
super, super unpredictable.
yeah.
And we had like an entire field worth of width between us. Like, so I really had to start at that point, peeling back
Mhm.
the layers of what I believed and why are these things happening, and really question, like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And is that actually truth? And, this, I guess it fits in quite nicely because this is one of the tools I still use to this day. Like when I find myself in a space where I'm like really, really scared about something or just like really hesitant or reaction, like a
Mhm. Yes. Yeah.
reactivity to something, I try to like step back and before I react, just think into that and lean into it and get curious about like, where did this actually come from? Because the things that we actually hear and that we say to ourselves over and over or with enough repetition, they become true. They become beliefs.
Mhm.
So that gets implanted in our subconscious. So by choosing, no, that's not my belief anymore. Like that's BS. It's actually not truth. And here's what I believe now.
Mhm.
I'm going to operate based on fact.
And continue to believe that thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
And that's the practice.
yeah.
Right.
So that was, it was a really empowering way for me to start assessing my life and just reorganizing and recreating new beliefs.
Right.
And getting rid of junk that really wasn't supporting me.
Yeah.
And getting rid of that process of creating a story in my head. We can create, something can happen, somebody can respond to us a certain way. And we create this elaborate garbage story based on no fact.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like,
I'm
oh my
really good at
gosh,
that.
they didn't return my smile. Oh, they must hate me. Oh, they must be a snob. Oh, they must be,
Yep.
Or maybe I did this, or maybe they didn't like the way I did that. Oh my gosh, I'm terrible. Ugh, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And it's really
It is.
unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like we add all this meaning to stuff that doesn't actually need to be there.
Right.
And this judgment and this like it's good or bad or
and our society, and it's indoctrinated into us to want to think that.
Yeah.
To think everything's better for somebody else, or what are they thinking about me, and to turn things around, right?
Yeah. And like the
Living
reality
in fear.
Yeah. And the reality is everybody's got their own stuff going on. Like everybody's got their own stuff that they're dealing with, that they are struggling with. Everybody's fighting their own battle. Everybody's focused on like their own inner feelings, their own doubt. It's not, this statement always like kind of blew my mind. It's not about you. It never was.
Yes.
And so we take things so personally on so many levels. And when it isn't personal.
So you mentioned the ego earlier. How do you find the ego plays into all of this? Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not going to call myself an expert on the mind, but I'll share what I've learned and what I believe to be true up to this point. And I'm sure that this will continue to shift and morph as I continue to learn. But so the ego mind, I kind of view that, you may hear people speak of that term. I believe it to be like our conscious mind. And you know how sometimes our conscious mind is really telling us like to stay small, to stay safe. You can't do that. You might fail. Who are you to do that? It brings out all these doubts and worries. Our conscious mind is a tool, and it's helpful to like think through a calculation and to think through something logically. But it also has this aspect of it where it wants to keep us small and safe. Because if we're safe, like if we don't do anything, if we never get out of our little tiny bubble, then we won't get hurt. We won't, experience humiliation that we did previously. And so I kind of view the ego mind as like this part of us that is part of our conscious mind that we need to learn to not give a crap about, like to not listen to, really, to not give it all of our power.
Right.
And to really question the things that are coming from it. Like, is that the only truth? Is that the only possible truth?
Right.
Or are there other truths available? So there's this ego side, this conscious side of our mind where, it's our logical thinking brain. And then there's like this subconscious area. And I've seen people use like the analogy of an iceberg. So the conscious mind is like the tip of the iceberg. The subconscious is like this huge monstrous piece underneath that nobody can actually see.
Mm-hmm.
And so the conscious mind, the way that I understand that, sorry, I'm probably delving into things that are not.
No, this is awesome. I love it.
But the subconscious mind, as I understand it, it's more like a computer. It's like this database.
Yeah.
And so it's got a storage spot for everything that you've ever experienced, everything that you've ever done, all your beliefs, all your like subconscious programming, things that you learned as truth when you were a child.
Right.
And so it doesn't necessarily know whether those things are true or not. It just holds a space for it and believes that they're true.
Mm-hmm.
And so the subconscious mind is really what I view as the thing that makes us like have that knee-jerk reaction or react to something. It's because there's something in the subconscious mind that is saying like, hey, like that's not cool because I had this wound or this experience previously. So where am I going with all this? So the mind, anyways, I think
it's the ego and
yes. Yeah. So I think, the mind's a little bit more complex than maybe, just the term mind.
Yes.
As I learn more, there may be different layers of it. And I may have hit the nail on the head with some of those and maybe not.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
But the ego really, I feel like it shouldn't be in the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like when we allow things to come from our heart, which is really how I view our soul or spirit really communicating to us, the true essence of us, I think that is really what has helped me in my life in so many ways and from a mental health perspective.
Right.
The more that I follow those things, those yearnings from my heart, the more I feel great, the more magic happens in my life.
Mm-hmm.
An example of that, I'll just give a quick example. So when my mom passed away in December of 2020.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really traumatic for me. I was there like the moments that she passed away, and I was there helping my brother with her palliative care. And so it was a heavy time. And, after that, a part of me kind of died with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, I was very struggling. And, so everything in my logical mind at that time, so this is talking about getting a dog.
Okay.
My husband started talking about getting another dog. Ours had passed a couple of years before, and he was finally ready. And I was like, well, my logical mind tells me like, there's nothing right about this. It's a terrible time. That's an extra expense, like extra responsibility. Nothing good about that. But my heart was like screaming for it.
Yes.
And so I could have, honored my ego and that conscious mind and said like, yeah, there's like, if I look at this from a logical perspective, it's really not practical right now. And but when my heart was absolutely calling for it. So when I took that step, like doors started to open. My heart actually healed because we got that dog. Like she helped with my healing, and I'm so grateful for that. But had I not done that, I probably would have been in that same like stuck place.
Yeah.
Not really able to process those emotions that I had experienced. And so, so my approach to life has shifted. And I'm not saying that this is right for everybody, but my approach to life has shifted in the sense that I now drive by my heart, and I allow my conscious mind to be there, and I listen to it and I observe it, but I don't necessarily give it the power to make decisions.
Yeah.
I allow it to be part of the decision-making process.
Mm-hmm.
And, ultimately I listen to my body and how it's feeling and my heart now.
Right.
And honestly, that sounds really silly if you're a business analyst who has a logical mind, who's like,
but maybe that's what makes their heart happy.
Well, and so my heart is happy now. My logical mind still shakes its head at like, oh my gosh, how can this be true?
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, every time I listen to my heart, something pretty amazing happens. Doors open that wouldn't have otherwise been there. Even stepping into this energy work, this is not something that I ever envisioned for my life. Right. Had you told me this 15 years ago, I probably would have used cuss words and said, get lost kind of thing. Right.
Yeah.
That can never happen. Not me.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where my heart was really taking me. There was some reason that I was intended to be here. And honestly, this is the most satisfying work that I've ever done in my life.
Right.
Every session with every client is beautiful.
Yeah.
I've never felt so fulfilled and overflowing.
Right. So how does it work then with a client coming in as far as okay, if they are suffering, whether it be the body pains or anything like that, or it is something that they're mentally dealing with. How do you kind of break it down, and how do you find out, like, do you ask questions? Is it, and of course it's a safe space for the client. Can you kind of give us a little bit of an idea of what it looks like to come in?
Yeah, for sure. So with every client that I start working with, there is like an intake process. So I have a form that just kind of gives me like an overall view of what's going on in your life, what's problematic, and we go through that form and, the responses that are provided, and try and get a sense of like what was happening around that time. How long has that been? Just kind of just trying to feel the energy of what's going on here. When we do that, what I'm really looking for is I am asking for guidance on how can I best support you. So I am working with your energy, with your spirit team, with your spirit through the entire thing to really figure out like, how can I help this person? And am I the right person for them? Because it's possible that really this isn't a good fit.
Yeah.
So from there though, I use that guidance to provide recommendations. So I'm never using, I shouldn't say never using my mind, but like my mind is not in the driver's seat. I pretty much bring forward what their energy system and their team is suggesting. And I'll provide my logical thoughts on it, but so we go through that process, and pretty much we allow from each point then on the body and their energy to drive the process. So where are you at right now in this moment? Because that may be quite a bit different from last week. What's going on? How can we best help today? And then we basically, take that approach. We ask for guidance. We go through the process, whatever modality I'm working with, emotion code, body code, whatever. And then we say, okay, well, what's next? Like, are we done here? Is there more that we can do? What is the next best step? So, it's our bodies are all very unique. And life also happens in between. So, I could say, here's how I think we need to go from one end to the other, but then life's happening in the middle and we're having emotional experiences or a crisis or, so I'd say every day that we are connecting and doing some sort of treatment, it is really looking at, but what do you need now? Right now.
Yeah.
And it's, I might have had a plan and that plan may be out the window, and that's okay.
Right. And it's all about the present.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. Which is not where I used to live at all.
Right.
I used to live in the past and worrying about the future. Yeah. Which is part of, I think, the mental health challenges that I experienced.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Anxieties in the future, depressions in the past.
Yeah, you betcha. So, that's really what the process looks like. And, how I actually work with clients, it differs based on what they're actually looking for and, how I can best help them. Some we work on longer term. Right. And so we have longer sessions where we can actually connect and talk about what's going on and then figure out, okay, what are we going to work on today? We, for some people who are working with me in a package perspective, we actually take an energetic baseline, like kind of a reading of their body and all their systems or organs, figure out what's working well, what's maybe not working at 100% efficiency, what is happy, what's not in their body. Yep. And then we actually have somewhat of a template to say, okay, well, these areas are really unhappy today. Yeah. Like they're really not working at, maybe less than 50% in some cases. Okay, let's focus on those and kind of get them to a better space. Right. And then we can go from there. And then we can take like an energetic snapshot every treatment after that. So when I'm working with people in more of a package offering, it goes much deeper like that. Right. And that was helpful for me because I was like, does this energy stuff really work? But when I started doing that with myself, I was like, oh, well, now I can see, like last week, it was really bad. And I know that I felt really bad last week. Right. And then this week, oh, look, that came up. Yeah, I actually do feel better. So like it helped me to give that logical mind something to wrap around. So that was helpful for me, and it is for my clients. Can it bring out, just as a kind of like a warning for somebody who's going into it, is it something that can open up things that that maybe you thought were, like you brought up the subconscious mind and right? Is there something around that people would have to kind of consider? So I think, with all energy work, any of the treatments that I offer, there is like a processing period. Okay. Right. Where after the treatment, your body's kind of adjusting to find its new normal. Like, energies have been released, maybe trapped emotions were in the way. Now that energy is flowing freely.
Mhm.
So your body is like adjusting to it. People can feel a little bit emotional after some sessions or even during some sessions. It's actually quite rare, from my experience anyway, but it can happen. Oftentimes people just feel a little bit fatigued after a session and just need like a little bit of rest. And that's like a normal, natural processing symptom of the body.
Anything.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so in terms of like when we get into the subconscious, I have never really experienced anything that was like earth-shattering in my sessions. But as we're digging around, it does bring kind of like revelations up, for some people. Sometimes they see energies and like things from the past that they really don't like about themselves.
Right.
One of the things that I guess the way that I work with my clients or encourage them is like to not make a story about it.
Mm-hmm.
We acknowledge it, we validate it, and we release it. I also, like, if things were to come up ever that, need more processing, we can either look at what is the right approach that I can work with, or is there maybe something else that would best support them? Like maybe talk therapy is the appropriate thing to help work through those things.
Right.
So I'm never necessarily thinking that I'm the be all end all.
Of course, right? And that's what
yeah.
I think makes you kind of trusting and, that you're open to, because you do seem you're very open to whatever can help you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
like,
it is different for everybody.
Exactly. I may not be the right flavor for everybody.
Yeah.
But maybe I am.
Well, and like you said, even for yourself, you probably know if it's not the best fit, and we all do. That's also your intuition when you meet somebody. Sometimes you just know right away that, okay, well, maybe this isn't the best fit, and that's okay, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So this has been so amazing. I'd like to ask everybody, and I always say it this way too, what is the last best thing that you do every day?
The
to
last
end your day.
Best thing that I do. So at the end of every day, I do kind of an energetic clearing on my body, on my home. I work out of my home.
Right.
So I still do some IT work and I still do more energy work than IT work. But so I kind of go through a process where I let go of anything that I'm holding on to that's not mine to own. It's not mine to hold, whether that be, a frustration for the day, a circumstance that is kind of outside of my control, or like some stress that another person was experiencing or I was experiencing. And I just kind of go through a process where I let that go and I hand it over to the universe. And so I kind of take an inventory and just clear it. And I go through a process of clearing my space because I'm quite sensitive to energy. And so I don't want any garbage left over from anything that was released or anything like that. So that kind of sets me up for a restful sleep and, keeps everything in check.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would you say, like if you could leave the listeners with anything in regards to mental health and providing a soft place to land in that regard, and what the modalities are that are available, what kind of would you leave them with?
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of mental health, the one thing that I want to say, and I want to say this across all levels of health, to be honest, oftentimes we think that we're broken, that there's something wrong with us, that we need to be fixed. And I actually don't believe that. And what came to me through my healing process is that we're not broken. We don't need to be fixed. We just need to heal. And so that's number one, what I kind of want to get out there. Number two, we have some mainstream ways that are known and accepted and are baked into our systems, like our benefits and whatnot. And they can be really helpful. And, some of them may include prescription drugs and, those can be helpful. And so I'm never saying that they're not good and that you shouldn't go that way. But they are kind of placing a Band-Aid over a root cause. And so I think where our system may fall short sometimes is actually digging deeper to get into that root cause. And so for me anyways, what I found was that there were aspects of our system and what's known and what's acceptable that can be really helpful. But for me, it really came down to digging a little bit deeper and, trying the different modalities to help my mental health. And honestly, there are many different ways that you can help yourself. Talk therapy isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Mhm.
It's not. Journaling is an amazing way to get emotions out and to kind of like sort through your feelings and sometimes get intense wisdom from your intuition, like from your inner voice coming through. But the modalities that I work with, that I would say really all of them can help
Mhm.
with to bring greater balance, to maybe clear things that are causing or contributing to certain symptoms. And I would just, encourage you to have an open mind and to, if you find that there's something that feels almost like magnetic about something that you're hearing about, and it feels like you really just need to try it, I would encourage you to give it a shot.
Right.
Like dip that toe in, do kind of like a little test, temperature test. Yeah, this feels like the right way, or no, not at all. And kind of follow those curiosities and see where it leads you.
Yeah.
Because often those curiosities are the nudges of our spirit team really helping us to go down the right path that's right for us,
Right.
not right as defined by somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So there are plenty of ways. I believe that many of the things that I offer can help. And there's also many other things out there that can be very helpful. Talking about things and getting those energies out, I think, is really important. So, follow what feels right for you.
Right.
Yeah.
This has been just amazing. The insight, like you just, that it really great information. And it kind of an eye opener, I think, for a lot of people as to, like, you really broke down kind of what each one of your offerings is. Sometimes it's hard to understand it.
Yeah.
And that's where you wind up maybe, I don't believe in that. I don't want to do that. But you really did. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And for being so open and honest about your experiences as well.
Absolutely.
Again, is there somewhere, like, where you have your website, Transcend Wellness? Is there, where else can people find you?
Yeah. So my website, www.transcend-wellness.com. So that's one way to find out about what I'm doing, my services. And I am going to be shifting kind of how I offer services moving forward and whatnot. They can find me on social media. So Instagram and Facebook. And the handle is either at Sherri-Lyn Shaw, Sherrilyn Shaw, SHAW, or Transcend Wellness, all one word, .ca.
Right.
So those are kind of the primary ways that people typically will find me.
And you offer many different workshops and classes and all that kind of stuff too, right?
I love doing
wanted
workshops.
To dip into it a little bit.
Yeah, they're a great way to kind of get a sense for, even like one of the ones I offered recently was, dismantling fear.
Mm-hmm.
And so looking at that from various different perspectives, using questions to get curious and kind of dig into things, using emotion code to clear emotions that were causing those fears, that type of thing. So it's a great way to kind of get a taste tester for like who I am, what I'm all about, and some different tools to actually help yourself. So I love those workshops. They're so fun. And, the safe space that we create to share and grow together, I just adore those.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and the interaction, even because there's, group therapy and stuff. This is, I find whenever I go into these kind of workshops, it's not so much the, examples of what happened to you and going back into the past. It's more about the healing.
Yeah, exactly.
It, right?
Yeah. I'm not interested in dragging somebody through the mud that they've already had to go through.
Right. That's the guilt and shame.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. I'm not interested in, talking through, I'm not a talk therapist. So like going through all that, it's probably not the best way I can help you, but how can I help you? It's to shift your energy. It's to start, maybe considering things in a different way. It's to start clearing some of those things from the past. And, some of the things from the past, this fascinated me because, sorry, this is complete sidestep here. But, when I started working with the emotion code and really trying it out on myself, what I found was that there were a number of emotions that were mine from my lifetime. There were also another number of emotions that I had just absorbed from other people. So as I'm an empath, that's where I was like, oh, yeah, that wasn't even mine. And I'm still holding on to it. And it's actually impacting my life now.
Right.
And then there were emotions that were inherited. So my parents and beyond, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and so everybody in this world, I believe, is kind of doing the best that they can with what they have.
Yeah.
And so I don't hold any blame to my grandparents or great grandparents, because
course not, yeah.
they pass this on energetically to me. But what I do recognize is that we're all just doing our best to get through life and to figure it out and do the best that we can. And now we actually have some tools and some understanding on how to clear that energy. And so that's a really beautiful place of empowerment. Like, that is a point of power.
Right.
I can choose to stay in the soup of all this stuff that's not even mine and keep carrying that with me. And like, it's like a U-Haul truck of stuff that's, half of it's mine, a bunch of it's not. Or I can start clearing that. And the other beautiful thing that I experience with that is like inherited emotions, for instance. When I clear it on myself, it doesn't just clear it on me. Just by the way it works, it clears on everybody who's inherited that.
Right.
So it clears the energy of it. And I was like, wow, isn't that a powerful ripple to make in the world?
Right.
Like, I'm just cleaning up my own stuff. And so one of the things that always really rubbed me a little wrong was, when I would try and change the world, or like look at the malfunctions in our world, some of my spiritual kind of leaders that I would, turn to, they would be like, yeah, to heal the world, you have to heal yourself. And I was like, ugh. But I mean, what I've experienced is that there's truth in that. When I did the work to do the deep digging through kind of my energetic state and clear out some of that stuff, things just started shifting around me. I wasn't forcing anything on my husband, but things started shifting with him.
Right.
People respond a little bit differently. It actually did just change the entire dynamics of certain things. And that was really beautiful. So, we can put, and this, I'm going to tie this into mental health because it so ties in. When I was looking at all the things that were completely outside of my control and putting all my focus on that and getting so angry and worked up about it, like I could just feel like, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't actually doing any good by that. It was actually just putting my body into a really uptight state, angry, upset. My nervous system was on high idle, like no healing was happening because I was always, so tightly wound. That didn't get me anywhere. But when I was able to focus on just my stuff and focus within and clean up my stuff instead of worrying about everybody else's stuff, that's where the magic happened. And I think that that's one of the key things that helped to shift my mental health, was I was no longer looking at those things that I couldn't control and just like getting myself in a frenzy about it. I was saying, okay, well, what is in my control? Well, my energetic state, my reactions, my responses to life, how I choose to bring myself into certain places, and the energy I bring in with me. Am I going to choose to be a hot mess that's all tied up into all the nastiness and anger?
Yeah.
Or am I going to choose to just take 2 minutes to meditate and get into a calm, centered, peaceful state and come forward and do something productive and meaningful and positive?
Right.
And so I think that we hold more power than we give ourselves credit for. And I think that I just really want to highlight that.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you. I think that's the perfect place to say, to end the podcast. And thank you again. Next
Thank
week.
you, Carrie.
Yes, it's been beautiful. Again, I will have all of the her information, Sherri-Lyn's information on the post and on the podcast, and you can get a hold of her. You can give me a follow on Facebook at Carry On With Carrie Podcast, or on Instagram at Carry On With Carrie _podcast. And give me a listen and follow. If I love the support, and if you know somebody that this might help, please feel, if you feel called to give it a share. Next week, I will have, next Thursday, Lydia Duncan. She's going to, go through some of about how to get through being a mom and all that good stuff. So I'm looking forward to that, and I hope everybody has a great week coming up. Take care.